realized my phone is connected to the car.
Go grocery shopping for the family, and there was a little bit of friction about some scheduling. Family really needs groceries. I had a live stream to do, so we compromised, and I am in the car getting ready to go to my second grocery spot with my gloves, my antibacterial soap, my little mask. My dad ordered this mask, I don't know, I think from somebody on Etsy like 2 months ago or something, and they arrived, and so it was a nice little thing to get. Although, we've had other masks. Anywho, so breaking news. This is a big deal, and I hope you guys are paying attention to these local races. I know we're all frustrated right now, rightfully so. The movement has been beat up quite a bit, and COVID is making it extremely difficult for candidates who are grassroots, who don't have millions of dollars, who are challenging the establishment. Probably many of them come from working backgrounds. They're putting their lives on the lines, they're pausing their lives, they're working while they're campaigning. They have to put in extra effort to fundraise because they don't have access to rich friends. It's really hard for candidates to run right now, to run in general. And if you add to it being a woman, there's a lot of evidence that shows it is extremely difficult to be a woman running. And if you just add being a working class woman running on a progressive platform, you hear things like you're not going to be able to raise money, you're not going to be able to build the infrastructure. These are the things you hear along the way, and I know personally because I ran for office. But I also have been learning this through Matriarch, which is an organization that I'm on the board of, and Matriarch has endorsed in 2020 10 candidates, and there's a lot of other women that are involved in Matriarch who have been in office or run, and they talk a lot about similar experiences, and it's pretty jarring. So the breaking news, and this is why I bring this up, because it's super important to pay attention to these races. And if you're looking for a place to channel your energy, if you're looking for a place to feel like you can make a difference, the one plus side is you can volunteer on races that may not be in your backyard anymore, because all of these campaigns are running virtual campaigns. They're not able to knock on doors. Even if the state's opened up, I definitely recommend that they don't. And mutual aid is a thing. So yes, if you have a great candidate locally that's doing mutual aid, I would recommend getting involved in that if you can. But these are the races that are going to impact how America really handles the effects of COVID. There's what's happening right now. Today, Donald Trump said he was pulling out the National Guard from dealing with COVID one day before they were going to get their benefits. So this is, there's the immediacy of the crisis, the health crisis, how it's impacting working people, how it's impacting folks who have to take care of their children and teach their children, and how they balance those duties. Of course, if you don't have access to health care, if you lost your job, if your time has been limited and you don't have access to health care because of that and benefits now. There are a lot of folks who are talking about how they were furloughed and brought back with a different job, essentially, with different hours. And all of these things are impacting our economy, but of course it's going to be harder and harder as we deal with the effects of COVID, and it's why we need a Congress that is full of not just Democrats, not just Nancy Pelosi. We need a Congress that can stand up. We saw her messaging bill and how it was a handout to lobbyists and banks and debt collectors, foreclosure companies that are collecting money from foreclosures. It's a really nasty bill, to quote Donald Trump. And they're just publicly not prioritizing these issues. They're just signaling to all the big business that at the end of the day, even through this crisis, they're still going to be tied to big business and banks and lobbyists. And of course, Pramila Jayapal, who's the chair of the Progressive Caucus, co-chair, she fought back. You know, she sees this as an economic crisis and a health crisis simultaneously, that it's hurting those in the frontline communities the most. And the issue with the Progressive Caucus is there are not enough progressives in the Progressive Caucus. And as AOC once said, anybody can join the Progressive Caucus. There is no accountability. And of course, they would have more leverage against Nancy Pelosi, whether or not the bill goes to the Senate and passes or not. They would have more leverage if they had actual progressives in that Progressive Caucus, actual people. Actually, I'm going to even take out the word progressive. People who are dealing with the direct effects of this crisis. People who feel what it's like to not know whether or not they're going to have health insurance to provide for their children, or who are working multiple jobs and don't have anybody to teach their kids' school right now, are worried about paying their rent, are worried about foreclosure. I mean, we know what the list is. Student loans. I mean, how many folks right now are getting, I think I read an article today about how, the percentage of people that are just having direct withdrawals from their accounts for student loans. This is not how we handle a crisis like this. And the only way that we as a movement can get serious about this is, we have a presidential race, and that's important to pressure Joe Biden, but I think we really got to focus on Congress. If there's anything that's revealed it's how this HEROES Act messaging bill got handled, and how Nancy Pelosi is more interested in calling Donald Trump fat and showing her ice cream, of course, than actually dealing with the crisis at hand. And also, it's one thing to say that the bill wouldn't make it through the Senate. Okay, we get that. But if we do win back the Senate, and there's a real chance, I'm going to guess we're probably not going to win back the Senate with some progressive senators. But if you have a Congress that has a strong enough progressive caucus that's fighting back, then the conversation shifts. And there are some senators that, have moved to the left because they don't have to run for election every 2 years. And many of them want to run for president. So, again, in a few years. So this is why we need to be supporting these progressive challengers, even if they don't win this cycle, because my God, it is going to be a very hard fight for a lot of folks. We need to give them a strong showing. We need to show them the support they have. We want them to build the infrastructure so that they can come back in the midterms and do it again. And I am so proud of Matriarch for being a very, very early endorser of this candidate, because all of our candidates have signed on to our pledge of issues. A lot of people don't know this, but when you run for office, you're sent tons of questionnaires from different organizations to get endorsements. And, these questionnaires take a lot of time. And this is something to keep in mind. Like, if you're a candidate, you're doing a million things, and including raising money so that you can hire a staff and pay volunteers and pay interns, or onboard volunteers eventually. And some of these questionnaires I spent hours and hours, and finally I got some assistance on it, but some of them were pages long, and I was really annoyed. Many organizations didn't even read them. So we thought it was important, because a lot of us were former candidates, to make this questionnaire pretty simple. Do you believe in Medicare for all? Do you believe in the Green New Deal? I mean, some of them were much more specific. Do you, they got a little bit more nuanced, but it's about, a couple pages long. And then if they didn't, they had to explain. And then at the end of the day, when we interviewed the candidates, we asked them, listen, we really believe in our platform. And if you decide to change your mind on any of these issues, we're going to ask you about it. And if you don't respond with some sort of reasonable response, because sometimes things, get a little testy, but for the most part, we want them to stick to this pledge. But if you don't, and we don't think it's a good excuse, we will pull back your endorsement and publicize it. Because we felt that was really an important way to know that these candidates weren't just running to the left to get elected. We want them to be to the left. We want them to stand for this platform once they're in office. And also, they earned a spot that many other women who are running, working women, could have could have earned. So they're taking a place. So Nabila Islam, I buried the lead here, didn't I? 10 minutes, you're all in now. Hey, while I'm doing this, make sure to click like and subscribe and click the alerts so you see when I do these lives. I do them every Tuesday and Thursday on here on YouTube at 5 o'clock Pacific and 8 o'clock Eastern. And I might be doing some more cooking because people have been requesting it. So, and I've declared myself the house chef. We had an election in my house, and I am just cooking a lot. I don't eat meat, but I'm a foodie. I love from the cheapest food. I crave spices. It's probably like the number one thing I do when I travel. I love to learn about the food and the stories behind cooking. So what I might do is I might pick a recipe a week and like learn a little bit about, is there some sort of political lesson behind it, or did this dish come from some sort of moment in history? I don't know. I'm going to play around with it, but I might do that a couple of times a month. So Nabila Islam is running for Congress in Georgia, and she is running in a district that was won by a Republican 2 years ago by 400 votes. It was the closest House seat in the country. And she's running now. It's an open seat now because the guy stepped down. There's a lot of reasons as to why, a lot of opinions as to why. But she has a runoff. Georgia, they're doing mail-ins now. Her voting universe has shifted a lot, and she's just such a dynamic candidate. She's 30 years old, and her mother is an immigrant from Bangladesh. A really powerful story about how her mother grew up in a hut, like an actual mud hut. And of course, it's a beautiful immigrant story of seeing your daughter run for Congress. And she's extremely close to her mother. And her mother lost her job the week that COVID was declared a pandemic. Nabila's, she's a force of nature. All of our candidates are forces of nature, but hers is the next election coming up. And so we're really proud to have seen that early. And I'm a big believer in endorsing people early because it really sets the stage. It helps people bring in volunteers. It helps people get press. It helps people raise money. And if you're a working class candidate, you have to work so much harder to raise money. You have to work so much harder to get press. And if you're a woman on top of it, they just discount you. I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I was running, like, the New York Times wouldn't even mention me in the article for running. And I was like, or they'd minimize my experience. They'd say something like, blogger. It's like, okay, dude, so, excuse me, I don't have any water and I need some. So AOC endorsed Nabila today. Ilhan endorsed Nabila a few weeks ago, Ilhan Omar, of course, and Ro Khanna endorsed early on. So you see how it's kind of, it's a domino effect. And, Abdul Al-Sayed has endorsed Nabila. Ben Jealous has endorsed Nabila. He was an early endorser. And this is going to make a big difference because, she can't knock on doors. So it helps bring people to make phone calls for her. The election is on June 9th. So if you want to volunteer, make calls, donate, of course, if you're in the district. I mean, I think she's probably doing some mutual aid stuff too. But it was AOC's Courage to Change PAC that they put up a statement this morning. And, this is the kind of solidarity we need. I'm really just so happy that Matriarch, our political committee, our board saw this in her early, and we wanted to get in early. And that's why, frankly, we launched the organization probably a little bit early because we wanted to help candidates as much as possible very early on. And I think we've been very helpful in getting some of our candidates like early press and endorsements, and that helps collectively. AOC also endorsed one of our other candidates, Samalise Lopez, who's in the Bronx, and she's running in a district. It's an open primary also, and it's a crazy race where the current Congressman Jose Serrano is stepping down, and there's a lot of candidates in that race in New York. Actually, many I've run against, so it's a little close to home. But she's an extraordinary candidate. Also, she came up homeless. I've talked about her on here too, and I will do another I'll do another live stream about her because her race is coming up on June 23rd is Sameli's primary, and you can make phone calls for her and volunteer. If you're in the New York area, she is doing mutual aid. Her district is the poorest in the country. So, check out Nabila. She's killer on Twitter. She has no problem calling out the establishment. She calls them fakes. She calls them frauds. She wants to bring in the progressives to take over the Democratic Party. Because, listen, we can talk about presidential politics all day long in the DNC, but ultimately, Congress is where stuff is going to happen. This is where we're going to be able to affect change to deal with what is happening right now. And then, of course, that pressures whoever is the president. And it pressures the DNC. I think a lot of congressional members are very frustrated with the DNC. I hope I'm not giving anything away there. Even some that aren't progressive. So, it's not like they're just one monolith. There are factions on their side too, probably more so. So definitely pay attention to Nabila. I think also she attracts sort of a centristy woke crowd too, which is really fascinating that they're backing. You know what I'm talking about? The folks who support AOC and they watch The View and you're like, I don't understand. You don't like Bernie, but you like AOC. And that's good for us, by the way, because we're expanding our brand and we're bringing in our moms and grandmas and I think that's really helpful because if that's the entry point, then they start listening about Medicare for all and they start hearing and understanding why student loan debt is so extraordinary. I mean, I think about 4 years ago how much they laughed at us when we talked about eliminating student loan debt, and now I see it in mainstream Democratic Party I mean, not the platform, but the candidates that are very mainstream and moderate talking about it. So I know we feel down. But Bernie did help us win a lot of the messaging wars and inspire so many candidates to run. And I look at, folks like Nabila and Shahed Buttar, who's on the show this week. And I have hope because, at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a waiting game. We don't have a lot of time because of climate change and we just can't afford it. It's expensive it's personally expensive running for office. It takes a personal toll on you. A lot of folks lend themselves money if they have it or they don't work, and they, may not pay debt. Nabila is not paying her student loan debt right now. It's really hard. So show her some love. Click subscribe, click that alert, share this on YouTube. We want to keep growing this channel. COVID's been rough. It has been rough. We were doing great, and then COVID and the primary just sort of people stopped watching YouTube. Oh, Travis, hey, what's up? Where are we with student loan forgiveness? I mean, it's not even on the table with these centrists right now. So we have to keep supporting candidates who have that on their agenda. And Nabila's been extremely vocal about it. You can find some articles where she's discussed it. I think there was one in Teen Vogue and Glamour. She's trying to mainstream these issues. And yeah, check her out. Check out some of the work that she's done. She's talked a lot about student loan forgiveness. I mean, our generation's already screwed. I mean, my generation, I should say. I don't know how many people are watching this that aren't millennial in my age. I mean, and I don't know how kids right now, and kids graduating from high school, I should say, that are planning to go to college, what does the world look like for someone who might be entering college doing it virtually, or be in college right now and be taking classes virtually, or in their master's programs? It's a very different experience, and I don't really know what the effects of that are on learning. And also just think about I think colleges should cut the costs. I mean, if you're doing virtual classes, they should really cut the costs for people and expand access to scholarships and loans. And I mean, I'm not sure how their endowments are going to be affected, but that's a whole issue that I have to kind of delve into to think about. But it's going to have a real effect on us all. That's why free college. I mean, look back to Bernie's platform. That's why Bernie should have stayed in the race just a few months longer, maybe. Just maybe. It would have made a big difference. All right, guys, I have to go grocery shopping. I turned the car off because my voice was going through the speakers in a very weird Bluetoothy way. And it's now 100 degrees in here. I'm sweating. I don't know if you've noticed, I'd started to glow after a few minutes, but I'm very grateful to you for tuning in on this channel. Check out Nabila and send some love to her. Send some, if you have extra money, like please support Matriarch, please support Nabila. Matriarch, you know, we are, our board is volunteer, and we're really trying to, you know, support with all of our free time. So we want to build that movement up more so we can recruit more candidates for next cycle who come from working backgrounds, who are union members, union organizers, teachers in right-wing states that have you know, organized maybe teachers that, like in West Virginia or Arizona here. I mean, those are the types of people that we need in Congress, who can speak from authority, who can speak from personal experiences, and they're great organizers. They just know how to campaign. I'm off. I need to go into air conditioning. Stay safe, stay healthy. Oh, I'll put my mask on. It's nice, right? I think so. I'm not one to show off masks. I'm gonna get one of Sam Cedar's masks. I don't know if you guys saw that, but he has merch now, and it's he has a mask that says, "I wear a mask for you, and you wear a mask for me." So I might get one of those because this is a little bit hot for 100-degree heat. Ah! Take care, everybody.